Hello and welcome to another episode of Microsoft Mentors, the podcast. Microsoft Mentors is designed to lift the lid on the career journeys of the most successful leaders in the Microsoft ecosystem and to share their knowledge, insights, experience and expertise with the wider Microsoft community, offering mentorship at scale. Each week I'll be having open and honest conversations with technology leaders, business owners and technical experts from across the world of Microsoft tech and unpicking their past routes to success, their current models for personal and professional growth and advising you on how to develop the next steps of your cloud career. Stay tuned every week, every Wednesday at midday on LinkedIn Live and wherever you listen to your podcasts. Let's grow together. This week on Microsoft Mentors, the podcast, I'm joined by Paris King from Softcat. This is a slightly different episode to maybe some of the other episodes of Microsoft Mentors. Historically, we've spent the last 4 or 5 episodes talking to people that are technical experts in the Microsoft world. Paris comes from a very different background in the Microsoft space. She works in alliances within the IT channel, within the Microsoft partner ecosystem, and is the head of cloud alliances and customer experiences at Softcat. She spent the entirety of her career at Softcat, starting 11 years ago in Softcat's graduate scheme and progressing now to her role as head of cloud alliances. And it's a really interesting conversation to understand what other career paths there are within the tech industry that aren't necessarily technical. So Paris, do you want to just give us a little bit of a feeling as to your current role now at Softcat and what that looks like in the Microsoft world?
Yeah, of course. So my current title at Softcat is Head of Cloud Alliances and Customer Experience. So I'm sort of doing a dual role at the moment. I have been at Softcat for 11 years now. I have worked in the Microsoft world or ecosystem from day one. So I'm 11 years in to my Microsoft career. My main responsibilities these days are running the team, so running the Microsoft team. I'm also responsible for the Microsoft Alliance relationship that we have. I also look after our AWS relationship as well and our Google relationship. So I look after all of our key cloud alliances and partnerships. Responsible for the teams that are customer facing and support customers with the commercial build of their agreements and the Softcat offering. Equally, as responsible for the teams that work on the program side of things, so making sure that we are got all the right statuses, in maximizing all the right programs, all that great stuff. And then I very recently took over our customer experience department as well. I'm actually covering somebody on mat leave.
Yeah.
So that's been sort of an opportunity to step into a whole new part of Softcat, understand a bit of a different part of our business, but still really closely linked to what we do with Microsoft. Obviously, Microsoft's a massive part of our organization, and the customer experience that we deliver to our Microsoft customers is critical as they make up such a big part of our customer base. So lots of useful learnings to take over from the new world into my sort of homeland of Microsoft, I guess you could say.
Yeah, definitely. And with the Microsoft relationship and an alliance with Softcat, where does that currently sit in terms of Microsoft solution partner designations and things like that? How does that all look at the moment for you?
Yeah, it's looking pretty good, I would say. So we're an Azure Expert MSP. We've been an Azure Expert MSP for 12, 13 months now. Just renewed our into our second year, which is amazing. We're really proud to get that last year.
The renewal's fun, isn't it?
I'm really lucky. We've got a great head of cloud here at Softcat who leads the charge on that, and I get an insight into the audit process, but I'm certainly not all up responsible for it. I sort of admire from a distance what they do.
Yeah.
So yeah, really, really happy to have that renewed again. We've got 5 out of the 6 designations, partner designations with Microsoft. Got around 8 specializations across Azure, modern workplace and security, and sort of constantly sort of striving to get more of those. So yeah, I think it's pretty much where we're sat from a business sort of partner status perspective.
Yeah, and big change in that part of the Microsoft ecosystem over the last, was it coming up to 2 years now, isn't it? Since they moved towards that solution designation model, away from the old sort of gold and silver partner status. I spoke to a lot of partners over the last, especially that initial 6 month period as they're transitioning into that. Challenges of understanding, right, what do they need to do to make sure that they can hit the right designations that they need within the new system versus the old one.
Yeah, definitely. I think getting our heads around exactly what's required, and I think the sort of constant maintenance of that is the sort of major change there. But I would say I think the visibility that Partner Centre gives us these days versus some of the older portals that we used to work off of, I think there's definitely some improvements. But yeah, you have to be super tight on your accreditations, your technical certs, who's going to be taking them, when they're going to be taking them, and make sure you're really on top of that. So it takes an army.
And I guess if we, you mentioned there that you've been with Softcat all the way through your Microsoft career, and for you that started at 11 years ago as a graduate, as part of Softcat's graduate scheme. I guess just before the graduate program, what was your university life? What was your course? What was your focus there?
Such a long time ago. So I went to the University of West England in Bristol.
Yeah,
I'm really on the fence if I was ever going to go to university, to be honest with you. And I think it was because I didn't really know what I wanted to do that I sort of chose that option.
yeah.
It was sort of like, felt like it gave me a little bit more time, a little bit more time out of work as well. Selfishly, I think at that age, I quite liked the idea of that. I studied business management with marketing, which actually is pretty much what I do in some ways today. So it definitely was a great degree to give me some of the sort of foundational stuff that I have taken into the roles that I do or have done at Softcat. But yeah, I did 3 years BA Hons degree, and yeah, loved every second of it really.
And as you were coming towards the end of your degree, did you feel that grad schemes was going to be your route into the world of work? Were you sort of focused on going into grad schemes with that focus specifically on tech, or was it just apply to what looks good and see what happens? What was your sort of strategy at that point?
You'll start to see a theme of my approach to my career in this podcast. Again, after university, I was really like, business management is broad, right? You could go
Yeah,
into quite a lot of different industries, quite a lot of different job roles off the back of that. It's not like I was going to study to be a family lawyer or something like that. When I sort of completed my degree, I think I was still very much confused about what I wanted to do long term. I didn't have a clear idea on what my career path was going to be or what I wanted it to look like. And actually, that old saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know. I had an extended family member who was a director at Softcat at the time, and he just used to wax lyrical about how amazing his company was, and how great the culture was, how like interesting the tech industry was, and at that point in time, it just was actually, it feels like a growing organization that really cares about its people. We had good references from that. So they had a job role open in the Microsoft operations team at the time. And it felt like a sort of sensible place to start. So I sort of interviewed for that role, was successful, and then haven't looked back since really. So I certainly didn't wake up and sort of go to work in the technology industry. That would be
yeah,
a lie if I said that. And when I started, I've told this to a few people in lots of different sort of presentations and talks I've done, but I genuinely thought like that businesses, when they were getting hold of their IT, they would have just like popped to Curry's with a basket and like all their Windows Office and everything in those, those big boxes that you used to
yeah,
get, and
yeah,
go
yeah.
for it at the till. Like there was no part of me that was thinking about how these big enterprise organizations licensed their employees to use Outlook. Like that just wasn't it at that moment on my radar. So I had a steep learning curve when I stepped into Softcat, and I mean, again, the channel that was a whole new concept to me. So yeah, I came into it very, very fresh, but very eager to learn, I guess you could say, and do a good job and sort of yeah, make my
I think
proud.
it's similar to a lot of people, isn't it? I mean, I thinking back now as you were talking about me when I was coming to the end of my time at uni, and it was fairly similar. It was like there's lots of different options. I did psychology, so even broader. And I know I applied and I interviewed for John Lewis's grad scheme, and I think I did Audi's. I think I did Lloyd's Banking Group, and in the end, actually, I decided to do none of it, and I went off and travelled and did ski seasons and stuff before getting a real job for a few years. Um, but I think there is always, that point in time, especially towards, either coming to the end of A levels or coming to the end of your degree, where you've got to start making decisions. And unless you really know what you want to do, you want to be a vet, or you want to be a lawyer, that's a real clear profession, then actually, like you say, it's worth going in and going, I'll take a gamble on this industry if I like it. And in your case, that was where you've sort of continued your track, but you could have gone into tech and gone, actually, I hate that. I want to go into something else. But you've got to try things, haven't you? Especially early in your career to get a bit of a feel for it.
100%. I think the most important thing or part of me making the decision to join Softcat was the company.
Yeah.
Like, like I said, the culture was sort of second to none, and we had good people who we trusted telling us that as well. So I think that was a massive part, knowing that I was going into an organisation that was going to invest in me if I did a good job, and take the time to develop me, make sure I was in a safe space and a safe environment. I think that is really important when you're looking for your first role, because you need people around you who are wanting to do that for and with you. So
yeah. And with the grad scheme, was that, did you sort of move around different parts, different teams within Softcat over sort of a period of time to get experience in different areas? What did that look like?
no, like I said, I have been intrinsically linked to the Microsoft team since I started. But we do have, again, I think there's great opportunities at Softcat in particular, where if you were to join and you're a great culture fit, and you are a hard worker, and you're enthusiastic, and you're passionate about the business, and you want to do a good job, but perhaps you've landed in the wrong role in the wrong team, we're really, really open to supporting people to move across and sort of lattice into different departments, and like you say, sort of expand your skill set based on the area that you work in. But for me, I very much stayed with Microsoft. Has been the one constant in my career, that's for sure. But I definitely, throughout the years, have tried lots of different types of role within our Microsoft organization. Lucky, due to the sort of size and growth of it, there's been lots of different opportunities to try new roles in new spaces, and that's definitely kept it really interesting. And like I said, helped me develop a lot of different types of skills throughout the 11 years that I've been here. But yeah, I started the grad scheme in the Microsoft operations team. I was in that role for about 18 months to begin with before I
Yeah.
moved
Okay. And because Softcat are, well known in the industry for their grad scheme and early career schemes, and bringing that sort of early careers talent into the workplace. I don't know if you know as much about it or that close to it, but how or has the Softcat grad scheme changed much since you would have gone through it? Is it still a sort of similar type of model?
much. Yeah, it's much of a muchness in terms of we still hire a huge amount of graduates year over year into the organisation. Actually expanded from an early careers perspective. That's the one thing that definitely has been happening over the last 5 years. Maybe actually it's been longer than that actually. I've got individuals in my team, my direct management team, who were apprentices at Softcat sort of 8 years ago. So
Yeah.
expanded out from just looking at bringing in university graduates to apprentices. Like I said, yeah, probably about 8, 9 years ago now. and seen some huge success from that, and some incredible individuals in Softcat who are really, really successful from being a part of that sort of journey. And then as of last year, we extended out to bring in interns as well. So we've just expanded the early careers program even further. So we definitely love bringing in talent at a young age and just letting them flourish. And I think, again, we've got so many amazing examples of individuals who have done just that. But I've also, as well, over recent years, we've definitely as well put an emphasis on bringing in a lot of external experienced talent into the business as well. Those who have worked in sort of various different roles across the sort of IC industry, across the channel. And they've come in and made an incredible impact. And actually their outside perspective has been crucial to what we've been able to achieve today as well. I spoke about our head of cloud earlier. I do think I'm his biggest fan. I talk about strange, but he came from another partner, and what he's been able to achieve in the sort of short time that he's been here is amazing. So we've definitely evolved our recruitment strategy, but we still very much love the grad scheme. So still very, very important part of the way we build out our organisation and the.
It's all about having a blend, isn't it? I think you want to as a business be bringing that early careers and graduate level talent through, because it means that you've got, people that hopefully are going to be with the business for a long time. You look at someone like yourself, but then you also, to counteract that, you need the experienced heads to come in to support and develop and train and mentor, and those early careers people coming in as well. So for yourself then, so landed in the grad scheme, 18 months in Microsoft operations. What did the next 5 to 6 years look like for yourself at Softcat?
Gosh, yeah. So I, when I was sort of felt like I was ready to move on from the operations role that I was in, I was really keen to become customer facing. I really wanted to explore what that was like. I previously to working at Softcat, I'd always been a waitress. I loved being a waitress. I've worked in hairdressers. Like, I loved customer service. I loved being in front of customers. So I think I was quite eager to do that again. So I stepped into, which was a role that doesn't exist anymore, but the T36 agreement coordinator role, which
Right.
essentially is a customer success role today. But it is the program that used to wrap around Microsoft enterprise agreements across their 3-year term. And I used to go around and speak to our customers about how they maximize their benefits. And I loved that. I think the variety of conversations that I was able to have with different types of customers. Sometimes you might be sat around, a big boardroom of a massive corporate organization. Other times you might be in a hospital working in one of the customer sort of IT offices in a hospital. Like loads of different types of conversations massively helped me understand what was important to our customers and the different makeup of our customers. Helped me grow my confidence a little bit, I think, as well, in terms of talking in different environments. Because again, if you're not used to working in a corporate organization, that can sometimes be quite a step to overcome. Helps with business acumen and that great stuff. I did that role for about 3 years, actually. So I had a good stint being customer facing. And then it got to the point where, again, I think I was ready for my next challenge, ready to do something new. And it was around the time where Microsoft really started to think a bit more seriously about the programs that they were offering partners. It was around the time of Fast Track was just kicking off. Again, the incentives that we were getting from our enterprise agreements were starting to shift into things like DPOR and C4 and all of those sort of different partner programs, and the profitability was shifting. And there was a real requirement for us to have a bit of a better grip around the programs that Microsoft wanted us to work on. So my boss at the time sort of pulled together a pretty loose job description for a Microsoft program manager role. Asked if I thought it would be something I'd be interested in. and I said yes to that. So that was probably one of my favourite roles, bar the customer facing one, because I feel like that was just a good experience. Um, because it was building something from the bottom, like from the bottom up. Like we didn't have anything like this in Softcat before, certainly not on a vendor anyway. So gave me a good opportunity to sort of prove myself a little bit. Had a lot of autonomy within that role. It was a really fluid role. Got to work really closely with Microsoft from an alliances perspective. That was the first proper time that I spent a lot of time with the Microsoft partner team,
Yeah.
and got to know some individuals there. So for anyone who knows sort of Paul Acosta and that sort of group go-to-market leads, I was working um, a lot on sort of strategic investment programs with their team, and that was again just a complete different step up to what I was doing before. And then I did that. Then sort of I'm quite good at. I'd like to think, if I was asked what my strengths were, quite good at sort of fixing things.
Yeah.
So over time, my team just gradually got bigger. I was given our Azure team to look after. At that time, it was 3 individuals. That's grown exponentially now. Then I was given the CSMs to look after for Microsoft. Then I was offered the opportunity to look after our AWS partnership. This was all sort of still under a lot of the same titling. We sort of looked then at developing my role into a cloud go-to-market lead, which was probably about 3 years after, sort of 3 years of sort of natural sort of progression within the Microsoft program role, where I was just given additional responsibility without a title change as
Yeah.
such. Stepped into cloud go-to-market, which again was my opportunity to work over multiple different partners and work closely with some more internal stakeholders to really drive the public cloud part of our business forward, which again has developed quite significantly over the last few years. And then it was sort of the right time to bring in head of Microsoft. Our Microsoft team was a big, strong team at that point, and actually managing them separately, sort of Azure and Modern Workplace, didn't really make a whole lot of sense. So bringing those things together, but also being able to continue my responsibilities with AWS is where the head of Cloud Alliances role sort of came along. And I've been doing that for a couple of years now, and then recently just took on customer experience. So I've had a really good support network around me. I've had some really good sponsors within Softcat who have really
Yeah.
sort of propelled me into different roles, or really taken a chance on me and given me new opportunities to prove myself. I think because of that, and because of that sort of amazing support network, um, my progression's been a bit sort of like really developed over time, and sometimes sort of quite small and incrementally. And when I look back, I do think actually it's grown quite a lot from
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, definitely. And it sounds like during the course of a lot of those transitions, there's either been a want or need from you to do something slightly different, or a want or need from the business, or a requirement from the business where actually your skill set has slotted into that quite nicely. You mentioned there about having sort of those important sponsors and like mentors within the business, and I think that's massively important for anyone's career, isn't it, to have people within the organization that understand you, what makes you tick, what your strengths are, where maybe your gaps are, and working with you to develop those skill sets and areas, and then identify opportunities within the business where that can happen. Do you think from your side, because I always think it's an interesting dynamic with those sort of sponsors and mentors, do you think you drive that relationship and that sort of the drive to move your career forward, and use them as supporting you to do that, or do you think it's the other way around where it comes down from them? Because I think some people are sometimes quite nervous about maybe going and engaging with a senior stakeholder about their own career, and how that person could maybe help them. So what's been the dynamic with those sort of relationships that you've had?
Yeah. And I think I think I'm probably a bit more of the latter, if I'm being totally honest with you, Ollie. And there's some really impressive people who are really take their careers into their own hands and really go and drive like that mentee sort of mentor relationship and make sure that they are maximizing the sort of network that they have in front of them. And not to say that I don't feel like I do that well, but I definitely I've suffered with confidence issues throughout my whole career. It's one of I did a talk at CRN a couple of years ago, the Women in Tech Festival, and it was all around sort of the confidence challenges I've had in my sort of like 11 year sort of journey at Softcat. And a lot of that comes from this sort of nervousness to be perceived as sort of arrogant or asking too much or all of that kind of stuff. So because of my own sort of, I think, confidence issues around that stuff specifically, would make it quite hard for me to then be going and sort of really approaching sort of really, really senior stakeholders and being like, right, okay, I really want you to tell me what my future looks like here at Softcat.
Yeah.
The approach I've always taken that's always really worked out for me, and everyone is different, and I so totally appreciate that, is I've worked really bloody hard at just being good at the jobs that I'm in, and always being like a person that would find a solution to something rather than taking a problem to someone.
Yeah.
So that has served me well, because I think what that's given my management teams or like other really important stakeholders in Softcat is this perception that I'm a trusted pair of hands, and that if I'm given something to do, I will make sure that I do it to the best of my abilities, and I'll make sure I collaborate with the right people internally. And I think that then has given them the faith that when the next opportunity comes up, they think I'm a good candidate for that. So I've definitely had the luxury, I think, of a really strong management team. My manager now is amazing at sort of pushing me out of my comfort zone. My manager that I had prior to him, he worked here for 8 years. I reported him for a really, really long time. And he was absolutely sort of the person that I can thank for sort of where I am today, because he is very much sort of been like, I know you can do this, put your mind to it and go and achieve the best that you can. But not everyone is gifted with loads of confidence. And if you don't have
No.
that confidence, but you have the capability, you have to rely on your management team to be able to spot it in you and bring it out of you. So I definitely had some great mentors, but they very much proactively come to me, I would say. I have,
Yeah.
since I've got a bit more confident, obviously that's changed a lot over the years. I definitely now have some, I'm much more confident going and seeking advice, but I felt like I had to earn the right to go and pick up the phone to someone on our SLT and ask for their, opinion and advice. Lucky here at Softcat, because they will always give you the time. But yeah, I think I've been quite lucky in that respect.
Yeah, and I think it's important to know you've obviously had a great career and got to the position that you're at right now at Softcat, but it comes with its challenges, and I'm sure there's still days of your working week where you're going into a meeting or going into a talk or whatever and getting a bit of imposter syndrome and going, bloody hell, here we go. Am I meant to be in this room or not? Everyone gets it, don't they? No matter where they get to in their careers, everyone experiences those sorts of anxieties.
Yeah, definitely. Feels good when you go into those meetings feeling like that and come out of them feeling like you did a good job there. I have to
Yeah,
remember that after feeling before you go
yeah,
in. Feel like you
yeah,
were.
yeah. Sometimes it's difficult though, isn't it?
It's not always easy. Great.
So I guess we touched on it briefly right at the start. So you've been through that whole journey to your current role now. What's the lay of the land in terms of the wider sort of Microsoft team and business unit now than at Softcat, and what sort of role do you play within that on a sort of a day-to-day basis?
So the team is quite big these days. So we have, from a sort of licensing specialist perspective, we've got two teams. We have one team who supports our corporate customers. We have one team who supports our public sector customers. They're sort of fairly significant in size. We have leads of those two teams. I've got an alliances lead that reports into me. Her name's Jo Boulderstone, and she has very recently joined. So she's very much taking over the reins from me, as hard as it is for me to step back from the day-to-day of Microsoft life, because it is what I've known for so long and what I really enjoy doing. Jo's come in to take lead of the partnership, our value proposition, and what our offering is to our customers, and running that team now. So a lot of what I do today is more around sort of the strategic direction of the Microsoft business that we have internally. We are a proportion of what that represents in my area. We obviously, like I said, we very closely represent the vendor. We very closely represent the sort of the customer facing side and the support that we give our customers day to day. But I mean, if I don't even know exactly how many people now we have in Softcat dedicated and working on Microsoft as a vendor, and making sure that our customers are getting the best experience and bringing that Microsoft technology to life. So a lot of my role today is really around trying to collaborate and understand what our longer term vision is with Microsoft, and then making sure that that's executed through the various teams. I work more closely with Microsoft again on sort of our sort of strategic longer term relationship. So what is it we want to achieve in the next 3 to 5 years? How are we going to achieve that? What do the teams need to look like in order for us to do that? What resource do we need to achieve that? How do we respond to the constant change of Microsoft as well? So trying to maneuver through the weird and wonderful world of channel partners and the programs that they will launch every financial year and then change halfway through, or potentially chuck a load of new stuff at us every year, or they'll make changes that we'll have to respond to. So again, a lot of it is making sure that we are agile, that we make sure that we continue to help our customers in the way that they need us, and that we also equally remain profitable as a business. So yeah, my day-to-day sort of varies quite a lot, but I'm less really focused on the team management now, and sort of more tactical day-to-day stuff that our sort of Microsoft team work really, really hard on, sort of get a bit more.
It's interesting as well, because a lot of the conversations that I have on the podcast with technical people is about the rate of change within cloud technologies, and obviously that's massive. But I think what a lot of people don't realise as much is the rate of change that comes at the commercial licensing level as well. And like you say, that all of the work that a team like your team at Softcat has to do to make sure that they are keeping abreast of that, so that commercially they're aligned to what the vendor is doing, in this case Microsoft, making sure that you're abreast of where there are opportunities within that strategic alliance to drawing support, drawing opportunities to work in, drawing funding. It's a very complex system underneath, isn't it? So yes, the technology systems are all very complex, and they change very fast for the technical teams. But likewise, on the commercial licensing product side of things, it's also very fast paced with a rapid rate of change as well.
Yeah, couldn't have put it better myself, to be honest with you. And like I sort of said to you before we started, like we're pretty used to some of the Microsoft shakeups that we've been through quite a few in the years, like the introduction of Office 365, the introduction of CSP, the move from CSP to NCE, the introduction of Azure, there's so many things that consumption business, which never used to be around. We used to buy perpetual upfront, UFA, all that good stuff. So there's been some really big sort of shifts throughout the last decade, but certainly now with the sort of wave of AI, with the importance really being on how customers are using the technology, how we're helping them migrate, how we're helping manage that, support that, and design that for them. Like the licensing may seem like it gets simpler when you've got certain suites that exist and whatnot. But the complexities just move into other areas. So yeah, programs is we tried to put all of the Microsoft programs on a page the other day. We couldn't find a page big enough. Like you just
need a whole wall in the office.
yeah, exactly. And they're just every single one works in a different way, requires a different thought process, actual process across departments. We're big now as well, right? Softcat have grown again. When I joined, there was around 250 people. We're now 2,500. So the organization that we work in today is more complex as well. And we have to navigate through our own organization and make sure that all of the teams are pushing in the same direction. So yeah, like I said, it takes an army, but it keeps us on our toes, keeps things interesting.
Yeah, keeps you busy, keeps the day-to-day interesting as well. And I guess what would be quite interesting to get your thoughts on is, Softcat have got a very good standing in the wider market and obviously a really strong Microsoft relationship. For people that maybe are working in a team that's maybe less established in terms of their existing relationship with Microsoft, but they're looking to really grow out their Microsoft business and want to form stronger relationships with Microsoft directly and improve their partner standing. If we say we looked at maybe Softcat where they were, when they're 250 people, if you've got a business that's 250 people, they're doing bits in the Microsoft world, but they really want that to be the core of their business and drive and grow that Microsoft relationship. So are there any sort of tips that you've got from your time working in that alliance space that people could lean on?
Do you know what? Just pick the one thing that you want to be good at and like chuck everything at it, because there is so much you could do in the Microsoft ecosystem that if you try too much, I think it's really difficult to succeed quickly. So find what you want to be famous for is what Microsoft would say to you, but find the thing that you want to be known for, find the thing that you're really good at, that you can build credibility around, that you can build a really strong story around and a good narrative, and then rinse and repeat until you've got such a good story to tell that it can't be ignored. Like back in the day, like again, for us, when I first joined, our strength was the licensing expertise that we had. We had some incredible individuals still within the organization today who are wizards at Microsoft licensing. And that's what we were known for. That's what we were great at. Then Office 365 came along and we were like, right, okay, we're going to be epic at this. So we put all of our energy into making sure that we had a really strong response to Office 365 being launched. And that then over time gets the sort of support that you need from Microsoft to then branch into new markets and new areas of sort of solution focus. But just keep it simple, because as well, like if you're in a sales organization, it's really difficult for your sellers to really understand all of the weird and wonderful things within Microsoft as well in the first instance if you're fairly early on. So make it simple for them by not asking them to understand and sell the world would be my advice. Like pick the stuff that you think you can really make or the area you can really make a difference in, get a really strong story behind it, build your credibility with your customers, tell that story, get your customers to tell that story. And then Microsoft can't ignore you. Not that they're ignoring.
That's it. It's one of those, isn't it? It's the same in any business, especially where when you're looking at something where there's a vendor relationship in there. If you're doing the right things and start doing stuff that will get you noticed by the vendor, then that's where you can start making and building on top of that. And with where Softcat's at now, you mentioned obviously sort of 2,500 people versus 250 people when you started. Do you think with all the changes that happen all the time in this space, do you think having a bigger team makes it easier for you as a business to pivot and implement, or do you think it makes it more difficult because too many cooks sort of analogy? What's your thought on the difference between where a smaller business is versus a larger business and the differences between the two?
I think that it's a really good question. Actually, I got asked in a Q&A with one of my teams the other day, what would your one wish be within Softcat? And I said my one wish would be to have a big, super Softcat office where everyone in my team worked in the same place, on the same floor, in the same location, and everyone came in all the time. Because I've got people across, and this is just my team, so they're across all of our like 9 of our 10 offices in the UK and mixture of people sort of working from home some days and working virtually, like I'm sure most people
Yeah,
are all experiencing. Um, and that does make it harder. Like it was easier when I was, in a team where we were all sat on the same row and we were all in every single day and you could spin round and ideate and, come up with solutions and then also just get things done really quickly. So that part definitely makes it more challenging, for sure. You've got to work around diaries and do all of that logistics of it. But what I will say is that the amount of perspective sometimes that you get is actually gold dust.
yeah,
Like I've got lots of areas that I am not strong in, and I've got lots of people in my team who are really good at filling those gaps. And the bigger your team is, the more impact you can drive within your customer base, within your sales teams, within the market. So yes, it's definitely more complex. Things take a little bit longer. You have to be more considered with your communication. You have to be better at collaborating. Definitely have to be better at seeking opinions and not do the tempting thing, which is sort of just try and run off and do it yourself, which
yeah,
sometimes when you feel like, again, when you've been doing it for so long, you're like, well, I know this approach works. I'm just going to do it this way. I've done it this way before. But how many times I've sort of stopped myself from doing that, gone and asked someone's opinion, and it's given me a whole different outlook. And we've tried that way, and it's come back with really positive results. It makes you know that it confirms the fact that actually taking the time to talk to people is the right thing to do. So yeah, don't get me wrong. If I could have all of my team in one place at one time, I would do
yeah.
that. They all were like, absolute. When I said that, they were like, that sounds like a terrible idea.
So basically, Softcat need to buy Wembley Stadium and convert it into a massive office for you, Paris.
Yeah, I'm like, I'll see if our head of facilities is keen to think about my idea a bit more seriously. Um, so yeah, you can definitely be quicker paced, I think. But once you've got a good model or a good way of doing it internally, I've been really impressed with some recent changes actually in how quickly we can mobilize our teams across all the different departments. So we can absolutely where we want to.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And then I guess going back to you mentioned it earlier, I think it'd be an interesting topic just to grab a few minutes on with. You mentioned that you did a talk at CRN on the women in tech topic, and I think we've definitely seen some really strong progress over the last few years, especially with lots of the larger organisations like Softcat and like your Avanade and obviously Microsoft, big SIs and IT service providers really trying to drive that agenda. I think there's definitely still work to do in that space as well. I guess what's your experience been as a woman in tech? What does that look like in terms of how Softcat are supporting that agenda of diversity of skills and equality within their teams as well?
Yeah, I've been so grateful, I think, for the opportunities that Softcat have given me personally to sort of be involved with women in business community. So our supporting women in business community was one of the first we set up. We have multiple communities now across all of the different minority groups that exist today, and they all are really great safe spaces for individuals who are part of those communities or allies to those communities to come in and talk about sort of the challenges that they're facing, but also like really proactively drive really positive messaging around those different groups into
Yeah,
the wider Softcat. And we do a lot around the education of the different minority sort of groups that exist, which has been something that we've probably been doing for a good sort of to 5 years now, and it's quite admirable actually how much time people put into making this a better place to work, and that's in addition to their day jobs, right? They're doing that out, the goodness of their hearts, and because they care so deeply about those topics. I was a member of one of our founding sort of office groups for women in business in London. When I first joined our London office, there were a handful of women in the office of around 60 odd people, maybe slightly more. And the leadership team were, again, amazing at making sure that actually we made a change there, recognizing that we lacked a diverse workforce and that needed to change. And if you now look around our offices and you look at the makeup of our teams, and I can't remember the exact statistics of our diversity split within Softcat these days, but I know that it's increased and we've exceeded our goals on our diversity mix over the last year or so. We've just come on leaps and bounds, and we've got a really safe environment for lots of different diverse groups of individuals, and inclusivity is really important to us. So yeah, there's lots of different ways in which we've done that. There's the more sort of strategic level initiatives that we've run with recruitment, so making sure that our job specs on our job descriptions don't have any biases in them. We make sure that make sure we've got quality on our interview panels. We'll make sure that we'll make sure there's no biases applied to people who sort of apply for roles at Softcat. So there's lots of wider initiatives that we are a part of and that we implement, but then also right down to like the stuff that we do in the offices day to day to make sure that things are inclusive for all of those who are involved. And sometimes it's the small things that actually go like a really, really long way, making people feel safe when we're all going out for a team night out, for example, and making sure that people have got buddies to go home with in cabs, all those types of things, speaking quite openly on like panels. And we have, Microsoft is one of our best partners that we work with on sort of joint webinars to talk around lots of different topics. So neurodiversity within the workforce. We're part of techie, which is something that we started from Microsoft as well. So which is all around sort of ethnic minorities within the industry. So yeah, we do. There's loads that goes on, and the amount of time and effort we put into it is, again, feel very lucky and privileged to work in a place that cares so much.
Yeah, it sounds like you've got a good mix as well of it happening at the strategic top level, because that's obviously important to filter down into lots of process type stuff, but then it also happening at the employee community level so that people have got safe spaces to go into and, talk and collaborate and support each other with their peers and with their colleagues as well. So no, sounds awesome. So the next bit, Paris, is going to be your favourite part of the podcast. It's going to be the Microsoft Mentors Quickfire round. So I've got 10 super technical questions.
Well,
you need to answer them as good as an MVP. Is that all right?
Alex will be so proud.
No, they're not. They're not anything like that. I've tweaked them for you just to make sure that they sit nicely for you. And some of them are work related. Some of them are a bit lighter. So 7 to 8 questions, short answers if you can try and keep it as short as possible. So to start off with, just keep it on the sort of the work side of things. What would you say is one of the biggest commercial mistakes that you see customers making all the time in the Microsoft world?
Commercial mistakes, buying on cost and not value.
Yeah. Going back to sort of your early career, if you've got someone who's thinking about going into a grad scheme, what do you think's the biggest thing that they should consider?
The culture of the company that they're going to work at.
Yeah, I was thinking that. I was thinking back to one of your answers earlier, and I was like, it's all about the company. And couldn't be more right on that. If you'd not worked in the Microsoft world and not ended up at Softcat, what do you think you would have done?
I think I would have been like a maitre d' at a restaurant or something like that. I
Yeah.
would love. I'd still be a waitress now if I could. Loved it. One of
Yeah.
my favorites ever. Yeah.
I hated it. I I worked in pubs, but I worked on the bar, and if it was ever busy and they were like, "We need you to run tables, Ollie," I was like, "Can I just go and like run the food out of the kitchen rather than actually having to take orders and stuff?"
Whereas they never let me near the bar. I can't pour a drink to save my life, but get me. I love taking orders. Loved it. Loved all the
Yeah,
small talk as well.
nah, too much pressure on getting it wrong. That's what I always thought. um, Going back to the women in tech side of things, what would be your biggest advice if someone is a woman looking to enter the tech market now? What would you one bit of advice be as they start to sort of maybe enter the tech market?
Just don't be. I'd say just don't be intimidated by some of the potential terminology that you see. Just think about the skill sets that you have, and you can apply them to lots of different jobs in the tech industry. There's so much to do out there. So yeah, don't be intimidated by maybe not having a real close or really strong understanding of today.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You know, some companies just go down to Curry's and get the laptops, don't
That's
they?
yeah, fine.
um, for you, what's the best part about working at Softcat?
Other people, which is cliche, but it is
Yeah.
true. And if Alex was who's also done this podcast didn't answer the same question in the same way, I'd be shocked.
Nah, to be fair, I don't think I asked him that one. I think I nailed him on the technical side.
It's the people hands down. Made some best friends. Some of my best friends at Softcat. So
Awesome. You've got an unlimited budget, Paris, to go on holiday. Where are you going?
I got engaged in Langkawi a couple of years ago. I just love to go back there. That is one of but like do it big.
Yeah,
That's
go big.
really I live it up. But yeah, somewhere like that. I'm like on a beach with 20 books kind of and a rosé in hand. That's my kind of vibe. I'm not a massive adventurer, so
Yeah,
yeah.
get you somewhere nice and warm with a beach, nice glass, and a bit of
Literally.
relaxation time. And then my final one, and I've asked everyone this because I just think it's a fun question. So it's a Friday night, and you've got to get your takeaway in. What's your go-to takeaway?
Oh, McDonald's every time.
Oh, is it?
I'm like the most beige eater you'll ever meet. Cheapest date around.
The chicken
Yeah,
nugget meal.
no, Big Mac every time with a cheeseburger on the side.
Yeah,
That would be
no,
my go-to. Also my death row meal, that is, believe it or
is it?
not. Mm.
Yeah, no. I'm Big Mac all the time, although I will never have cheese on it because I can't stand it.
Otherwise, really the podcast was longer. We'd have to get into why you don't eat cheese.
They could do a whole podcast series on that, but don't worry, Paris. No, also, really, thanks very much for coming and joining us. I think, like I said at the start, interesting to get a different perspective about a different career trajectory in the Microsoft world, learn a little bit of what that might look like and all the challenges that potentially come with that, because there are so many jobs in the tech industry that aren't technical engineers or technical architects, aren't there? There's such a big support system that drives all of that, especially within the channel, that a lot of people don't actually know really exist, do they?
Yeah, no, that was me 11 years ago. So, yeah, definitely recommend a career in alliances or a commercial role that's linked to tech industry for sure. It's yeah, I absolutely love it. So
Brilliant. Well, thanks for your time, and we'll speak again soon.
thanks, Ollie.
Cheers.